Hello everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another video of tutorial series in Kodiary technologies. I'm your host Anwar Ali and I'm here today with a new topic and the new series, maybe new channel, new playlist. And this time I thought, after such a long time, with the requests of many of my regular viewers, I thought to continue with uploading the videos, and I was always willing to, but it's just some busy schedules and works that I don't get time to make videos these days, but I'll try my best to continue. Now I've been making videos of web development and application development using PHP frequently, but this time I thought something new, and I'm planning to deal with some web security, application security, because after we have learned how to develop a website or web application, we should also be careful on web security aspect, because we never know that our application is running live and it's working fine, but there are many people out there in this world who are willing to play with the data that we store in our database, who wants to just give us trouble by accessing our website, and without us knowing that somebody else is accessing our data, and some of those data could be confidential and which should not be leaked. We must have been listening to the news in today's generation that regarding Facebook and Instagram and let's say LinkedIn, that many of the contents were leaked or many of the contents were shared to the world, and there are groups of hackers and some people, they are always willing to do such things. So after developing an application, we should also be careful regarding its security, and after knowing some basic aspects of security, we can just continue researching on it and get up to date regarding the web security, application security. And the first and foremost thing that we need to realize for the security of web application is that our system and the applications that we are running and the servers that we are running should always be up to date and should always be using the latest version of softwares, latest version of servers, latest versions of its coding approach. So these are the things that we should be careful about. But I will not be dealing with such things, but I will be dealing with some basic stuffs today to prevent some undesirable or undesired action in our application. So I thought that I could discuss about SQL injection, as the topic is really interesting to me, because most of the web application and websites use SQL queries for database stuff, whether it be MS SQL or it be MySql or Oracle, but most of the web application use SQL for their database purpose. So one of the things that we need to be careful, or we need to be aware about SQL, using SQL, is SQL injection. This is the very frequently used injection in the web application. By saying injection, they just add some undesired content or scripts to our system by which they get access to the informations that we don't want to share with them. So what is SQL injection? So first of all, we need to understand SQL. So there are various queries in SQL, like we have already discussed in previous classes. For example, select queries, insert queries, delete queries, and maybe let's say update queries, and many other queries, right? So these queries can be manipulated by the way we use those queries in our application. For example, we have a URL, let's say http, let's say abc.com, and whenever a user, let's say, wants to deactivate his account, let's say we have a link called deactivate.php maybe. So deactivate.php is a page that is responsible to delete any account. And suppose we are just passing a username or ID as a query string to this URL. For example, id equals to 1. So basically this URL means go to abc.com and deactivate a user which has ID number 1. So when a user want to deactivate his account, this is just a very simple example. Actually these things does not happen in real applications, but I'm just trying to show you an example. And if you are using such approach to deactivate or delete some stuffs, then please don't use such approach, because this is very vulnerable to hackers. Okay. So let's say we have a URL abc.com and we have a file called deactivate.php, which is responsible to delete an account or delete a profile which has id equals to 1. So if we are using PHP, what we generally do is we just grab the ID by using $id equals to $_get ID. Now we write our SQL stuff over here, which will delete the account, right? So let's say we have a web portal with some headers over here and maybe some picture here, and we have a link that says deactivate your account. This is a link, and suppose in this, let's say this is my Facebook profile page, and this is my name, this is my profile picture, and this is a link that says deactivate your account. So whenever I click on deactivate my account, it takes me to this URL that says abc.php. This could be facebook.com, abc.com /deactivate.php is the file that is responsible to deactivate my account, and I'm passing let's say id equals to 1 as my parameter, because 1 is my ID. So this link is taking me to this URL. So let us suppose I just hover into this link and this shows me the URL over here. And even if we just open any, let's say website over here, and just even these are the links, right? So if you see, just hover over the link, and in the bottom over here, just keep your eyes over here. So if you hover over here, you will see that youtube.com https://youtube.com, we can see that URL over here. If we hover here, we can see www.gmail.com. So whenever we hover our mouse over a link in a web page, it shows the URL to send or to use or to redirect, or in the bottom left corner, right? So same for this, and so on. You can see there are different URLs over here, right? So let's say if a user hovers this anchor, and he can see that the URL over here is http://abc.com/deactivate.php id equals to 1. Now he gets a rough idea that there is a page called deactivate.php which is responsible to deactivate his account, and his ID is being sent to that URL. And if the ID is numeric, he can just give a try by just copying this URL. Okay, so by just copying this URL and pasting it into your browser, and hit enter, and it will deactivate his account. But at the same time, if his ID is 1, he can just give a try with ID number 2 and hit enter, and this will deactivate the account of another user whose ID is equals to 2, without the user with ID equals to 2 knowing that his account has been deactivated. And he can go on like this. And the most frightening thing is you can just create a loop like this, for loop with some this, and he can just keep on incrementing the value of I and pass the value of I in this ID and call this URL over here using curl or using file also get content or anything that is responsible to call a URL in PHP. So he can just carry out a loop and just pass the value of I in this ID like this, and all of the accounts, all of the user will get deactivated. So in order to perform such action like deactivate.php is responsible to deactivate your account, we should never be sending the value of ID this way. This is a really wrong approach. Okay, but I'm just giving you an example. So this could also be an example of injecting undesirable content to our website. Let us deal with some so it also has an SQL. This could also be a type of SQL injection. So our SQL could be delete from users table, right, where id equals to $_get id. So this could be our query, and if we run this URL in a loop, it will just loop through the value of id from 1 to 100 or 1 to 1000, and all of the id will get deleted from users table. So this could also be an example of SQL injection. Now let us suppose we are dealing with login or returning some values of users from the database, and let us say it is a database of bank or some financial company, and it has a query or a form that expects the inputs from user and shows the value that is confidential to that user only. For example, select the ID of user and credit card number of the user and maybe account number of the user, okay, where let's say username equals to $_, let's say equals to $_post username, and password equals to $_post password. Okay, so basically I would do concatenation over here like this, like this, like this, and like this, and this would be my parent code, right? So this is MySQL query where I am grabbing ID, credit card number, account number from users table, where the username of the user is the username that we are sending from the form, and the password of the user is the password that we are sending from the form. So this could be a simple SQL query. And let us suppose we have a form that asks for username like this. We fill out the username, we fill out the password, and after we hit submit, it takes us another page that's, let's say it takes us to verify.php which runs this query and returns ID, credit card number, and account number from the users table, where the username is this filled out username, which is we are grabbing from post, and the password is this password that we are grabbing from the form, like this. So what's the problem with this query? The first thing, we should never be using the form values directly in the SQL query like this. Maybe in our previous videos we have done this like this, but because it was just a basic understanding, but now we should know that this is not a good approach to use the values of forms directly in query like this. We'll discuss about its alternate, how to use it, but for now I just want you to know how this can be manipulated easily, how these queries can be manipulated easily. So let us suppose I place my username to be let's say BLAH, blah, okay, blah and let's say I use a double quote like this, and I say or 1 equals to 1, and I say as dash. I think this should not be double quote, this should be single quote like this. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm adding my username as blah colon space or 1 equals to 1 and dash dash, and I can just keep my password anything else like ABCDE. Okay, now I hit submit. So once I hit submit, this value goes and gets placed over here, and this value is placed over here. Now let us see how our final query will look like after we use these two values. Okay, so our query would look like select id comma cc comma no comma account underscore no from users where username equals to single colon start and blah, right? Let me just show you. So single colon start, we are concatenating the username with underscore post username, so blah comes over here along with a single quote. So my single quote comes here, this single quote, and we have a or space and or, and we have 1 equals to 1, and my query ends here because dash dash in SQL refers to comment. So now my final query looks like select, okay, let me just complete this, or 1 equals to 1 and dash dash, and we again have something like and password equals to single colon starts and it ends, and I have my password as ABCDE is over here, and my query ends. But what happens here is, because of this dash dash, everything that comes after dash dash is represented as comment in MySQL. So all of these query, this part of MySQL query gets commented out, and it is as if there is no and password equals to ABCDE. So my final query is just this much. So my query is select ID, credit card number, account number from users where username equals to blah or 1 equals to 1. So this 1 equals to 1, because 1 is always equal to 1, so this is always returned true. So what I'm doing is I'm searching from users table where username equals to blah or 1 equals to 1. So because of this or, this SQL query, what will this do is it will select ID, credit card number, account number from users and return us back the ID, credit card number, and account number of all the users of the database. Now just by injecting this much of code in username, I am able to retrieve all the usernames and passwords from the users table of a bank account or it's a financial company, which is really vulnerable, right? So we should always be careful on using SQL query like this. So this is not a good approach. There should be, and there is, a better alternate for writing SQL queries, which we'll be discussing in coming class. So we can see here that our select query, where we use the parameters, or let's say the values that we fetch from the form, and we are easily able to manipulate the SQL query in our own way just by adding this much of code in username, right? So we are now able to access ID, credit card number, account number from users table easily. So you can see that this is one of the practical examples of SQL injection, but please do not try this with the bank accounts. And even if you try, most of the banks, they are at least aware of such cases, so they surely have used a good alternate for MySQL injection in order to get rid of MySQL injection. But I just wanted to show you how easily can your application be accessed by undesired people if you don't use security. So this is one of the examples of let's say SQL injection. At the same time, I would like to show you some other example. What if this is email and password? Okay, suppose a login form is not using username, rather it is using email. So this is not a valid email, so it will not let us submit. So if we have use input type equals to email or have written some of the, let's say, validation, JavaScript validation, in order to identify if the email is correct or not. So we can easily see that this is not a valid email address, so the submit form will not work. We can even crack this login form with simple tricks. Firstly, we can just inspect this, let's say, input field, and remove input type equals to email and replace it by input type equals text. That will do the work. Or there is another way, by just adding, let's say, let me just create a email address over here. So let's say I just wrote ABC colon OR 1 equals to 1, and let's say -- @gmail.com. So if you go and type this code in any email field, I'm sure that this will be a valid email address. Okay, so you can see I have used some special character like single quote or equal to -- but most of the email validators, they only detect if there is some text in front of @ and if there is a text along with dot, and after dot there is a text, so it validates email address. So this is a valid email address wherever you use it. But if you use this email address in a website where they have not considered SQL injection, you are already into the website. So let's say select, let's say we have another query, let's say it says select all from users where email equals to $post email and password equals to post password. So after we place this email address and this password inside our form and hit submit, it takes us to verify.php, and this SQL query is being run. Now let's see how safe we are using email address. Let me just replace this SQL query by these values. So we have our final SQL as select all from users where email equals to, and we have a single quote, and our email address starts ABC, and my single quote, another single quote, this single quote comes over here, which will end email equals to ABC, and we have OR, and we have 1 equals to 1. Okay, so now I have -- which will comment out everything that comes after -- gmail.com, and password equals to, within single quote, ABCDE. So this is our final SQL that we get after placing this value and this value in a login form. Now if you see, our final query is select all from users where email equals to ABC or 1 equals to 1, and remaining all query has been commented out. Now we can just remove this because there is no use of this much of query. So we can just delete this out. Now you can see this is our final query. Now the case is exactly the same like we did before. If you see select all from users where email equals to ABC, which might not be true, or 1 equals to 1, which is always true. Now in this case we are in a problem, because it again returns back entire row from the users table, including all the fields. Again, this is very much vulnerable. Now if you notice, whenever we start working in a project, generally we start from admin panel, and in our users table we generally place the admin user on the top of the users table. That is, the first entry of our user table is always generally admin. So once we get all of the entries from the users table, now we can easily grab the first entry from the user, let's say users table, and now we have the username and password, or email address and password of admin. Now if you go to the admin panel and log in using the username and password of admin panel, we can now get into the admin panel of the website, and we are already done. So we saw that there are various ways of injecting malicious commands using SQL injection. Firstly, we discussed that we can send if the query string are being used to modify the content of an application, just like we did for where we sent out $ID equals to 1 the URL in order to deactivate an account. So that is the best way to inject any let's say in order to modify the SQL command. Secondly, using form where we can just manipulate by adding a few texts. Thirdly, if even in the case of email, we can easily create our own email address that can easily inject to any of the SQL commands. So now the main thing that we need to know is not how to hack an application, but how to get rid of those hackers. So in our next videos, we will be learning about some best ways in order to get rid of such SQL injections. So I hope you liked the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit like and share the videos. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, have a nice time. Goodbye.